Welcome in. I am the CryptoBullGod, and this is the recorded on Thursday, airing on Thursday, February 17th. I always say February. It's February 17th, 2022, CryptoBullGod podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Tradingview, YouTube, and Instagram at CryptoBullGod. So I hope everybody had a very happy Valentine's Day. I know there's a lot of it's interesting hearing people's thoughts on Valentine's Day. Some people are all for it and get, to one extreme, go crazy with it. Of course, we all know on Instagram, people tend to post the glorious, most magnificent, beautiful, happiest moments in their life, making their lives seem much more extravagant and beautiful than our own. We all know. Yeah. And then on the other extreme, you have people who are cynical. So hopefully somewhere in between is where you fall. The Crypto Bull Goddess and I went out to a very nice dinner, beachfront. It was very, very nice. I'm still up in northern Florida. Of course, I'm losing track. You're probably losing track at this point, whether I'm in northern or southern Florida at this point. I'm sort of losing track too, to be quite honest. But up here in northern Florida, and had a really nice dinner. So had a great time. And had an interesting experience this morning. Shout out to that guy if he's actually listening. So I actually ran into someone at the gym that I'm going to up here in Florida that knew me. And he walked up to me and he said, "Hey, CBG." No, he walked up to me and said, "CBG." And, normally any other morning I would have been pretty hyped up about that and would have given him a fist pump. But I was pretty salty this morning because I've been having this nagging elbow injury that I've been nursing for quite a bit of time now. Finally going to see a specialist next week about it. But so I was a little slow to respond, but engaged in a couple minute conversation with him. Super friendly guy. So it's always, in general, what I would say is it's very nice to know that I'm helping people out. They find the content helpful. That's what I'm here for. Like, I am genuinely aiming to help others out, and I'm very passionate about the space. And by the way, if you're passionate about the content that I'm putting out, if you could leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel, I would deeply appreciate it. Right now, I am enjoying a dirty martini. So this is actually the first time and technically I did not make this dirty martini. Someone else in this establishment, in this home, made it. But it's a very good dirty martini. Never made one at home before. It's very tasty. You got to stick the blue cheese olives in there if you're going to do it. Do it right. So, and I'm doing, my brand of vodka today is Tito's. Normally I don't do Tito's. I do the vodka whose name I can't remember that starts with an L and is a potato-based vodka, and I can't remember the name of it. All right, so the name of that vodka is, and I'm going to butcher this one, Luksusawa. So it's a very good vodka, but doing Tito's. Very good dirty martini going on. So glad to be back on the podcast here. I had a TA video come out last week that I thought would be helpful for everyone in terms of evaluating the market and trying to simplify things so we're not getting caught up in all the emotional hype that's out there and 5,000 charts that people are looking at. And that's actually kind of what I want to delve into right now. So let's get right into the action that's taking place in the market. So per my TA video, it's not that I'm not monitoring other charts. I have other charts up on my screen right now. That's not what I'm communicating here, that I don't look at any other charts. But what I would say is if I believe my own thesis on the importance, the historical importance of the 12-hour chart on Bitcoin. If you haven't watched that video or the series of videos where I've spoken to it, I can leave a link in the description. But if I believe my own thesis, then wouldn't it make sense that I'm going to tend to focus on that 12-hour chart? And so I am focusing on that 12-hour chart. And I am also focusing on the DXY, the dollar index chart. So really mainly, if you want to know how I kind of evaluate the markets in the morning or throughout the day, yeah, there are certain projects that I hold or am interested in where I kind of evaluate the price action, or even projects I think maybe I'm not invested in or have a deep interest in, but I think the community might find helpful in charting it out. yeah, I pay attention to those charts. But the two main charts I'm focused on really are the Bitcoin 12-hour and the DXY. Because again, just to reiterate, as soon as momentum begins to pick up in the 12-hour chart, and we use that, what I'm calling historical significance behind price action on the 12-hour chart to say, hey, if price starts closing above our 200 SMA, and we get that golden cross and the 50 SMA starts crossing up above the 200 SMA, that's when we can expect that bullish momentum from the smaller time frame on the 12-hour chart will begin to bleed over into the higher time frames. So I'm kind of looking at the 12-hour chart as my best gauge to give the earliest indicator on when it's most likely that things will really begin to turn around. And so what I pointed out on Twitter, and I saw that this tweet has actually been getting a lot of attention, which is good to see. You know, we see Bitcoin right now as I'm recording this, Bitcoin is down 7.5%, right? And if you can't read charts and you don't know what you're doing and you're seeing the markets down and you're hearing about Putin and Ukraine and all this other gibberish like going on in the market right now, it's probably a little frightening, right? You probably thought, price was up at 45,000. You thought, we're finally recovering and things are going to be back above 50,000 before you know it. But let's allow the charts to speak for us and show us the roadmap in terms of what is currently really going on and what is most likely the scenarios that could play out, and allow that to formulate our own conclusion in terms of what's going on. Let's just look at the chart. And right now, what I pointed out is price action is right between the 250 simple moving average. Okay, that's what we want to see. Okay, if you've paid attention on Twitter at CryptoBullGod to the charts I've been putting out there, actually since we bottomed out back in late January, we've been creating higher highs and higher lows. That has not been invalidated. Okay, and we're also still, price action has remained above the 50 simple moving average. It's very important to note two things about that. Number one, to the extent that price action remains above the 50 simple moving average, what is that actually telling us? Well, first off, it's expressing strength in the chart because the candlesticks are higher than the average of the prior 50 candlesticks. That's what a moving average is. It's just an average of the prior X number of days. In this case, the simple 50 moving average is an average price point plotted on a chart of the prior 50 candles. So it's expressing strength, and strength to the degree that price action is higher than the past 50 candlesticks. Now, the other thing that's going to lend itself to the extent we remain above the 50 simple moving average at and above, the 50 simple moving average will begin to gain strength and increase in value. If the 50 simple moving average is gaining strength and increasing in value, what does that actually mean? Well, the line's going to start turning up, right? And if the line starts turning up, that means it would intersect the 200 simple moving average at some point, right? And that's what we want to see for that golden cross. And then eventually over time, as that momentum continues and price action remains above the 50 simple moving average, now we start impacting the 200 simple moving average. Now the prior 200 candlesticks, that average price point will begin to increase in value, and you'll see the 200 simple moving average on the 12-hour chart begin to turn up. That's how moving averages work. So there is nothing alarming that I'm seeing in the chart. What I tweeted out is we have to recognize that there's a lot of volatility in the cryptocurrency markets. I've always said, I'm very, very consistent in what I say, price wicks are an expression of volatility, right? So we can get candlesticks wicking below the 50 simple moving average on the 12-hour chart. But really what we want to see, candle body closes. That's what we want to pay attention to. Candle body closes. Where are the candle bodies closing on a 12-hour chart? Okay, we want them at and above the 50 simple moving average. Now, I would like to express that because this is a very volatile market, we have to allow for some deviation within the price action of what is optimal. Okay, so while I'm saying candle body closes at or above the 50 simple moving average, for me, it's not overly alarming if we see candle body closes a little below the 50 simple moving average. And when I say a little below, I'm looking at a value right around, maybe 39,500 at the moment, right? So if we're sort of hugging the line, it's a caution flag where I would really begin to worry. Okay, where I would start to get worried if we started seeing several candle body closes closing around 38,000 and lower. Now that I would be concerned about. Okay. But for now, price action is remaining at and above that 50 simple moving average. And as long as we're doing that, it is expressing strength in the chart. We're remaining to the bullish momentum that has just begun. The basic building blocks of a bullish narrative, which are what? Higher highs and higher lows. We're still maintaining that. And like I said, to the degree that we remain above that 50 simple moving average, and it acts as support, because once we break below a moving average, it acts as resistance. Once we get back above it, if there's strength in the chart, it should act as an area of support. To the degree we remain above it, it's going to signal strength, and it's going to lead to the 50 simple moving average begin to curl up towards that 200 SMA. So just hold tight. There's nothing in the charts right now that is overly concerning to me. Okay, and as far as the dollar's concerned, I don't have any new commentary to add on the dollar. I look at this on a monthly or 2-month view. I've signaled the strength and the price confluence and resistance points on a dollar chart that lead me feeling convicted, very convicted, that there's enough pressure there and enough I'm expecting within crypto this year that there's that inverse relationship that will exist, that the dollar should decrease, that dollar index should decrease in value, and we should see in relatively similar fashion a mass appreciation in crypto prices, just like we've seen in the past. I'm just using the past data to make inferences about current and future price action. That's all I'm doing. This is not my opinion. This is literally just data and numbers. That's all I'm trying to communicate. So check out the videos that I have listed here in the description to go over the TA, and drop a comment if something isn't making sense to you. The goal of those TA videos, it's kind of challenging because from my perspective, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to share TA videos that are engaging enough for people knowledgeable of TA that they get something out of it and they find value in it. And then it's also at a level, it's sort of in layman's terms to a big degree, so that people who are not good with TA can still follow me. So to some degree, if something isn't making sense, just drop a comment. Let me know. I'd be happy to engage with you and explain things a little bit further. And the one thing I wanted to hit home on, last thing on the price action here, and I've kind of hit on this before. Man, these blue cheese olives, I got to tell you. I've hit on this before. It just surrounds the timing. So I think a lot of people, and I said this before, they get super ultra sensitive on the timing, right? I said my primary hypothesis regarding timing, excuse me, of this entire market topping, I was incorrect. The market did not top when I thought it would, based on my primary hypothesis. But just because I was wrong on the timing, whether we top in May or October, whenever we top this year, or hell, maybe it tops, maybe Bitcoin tops in January of 2023. Why does it matter? I mean, the reality is what should matter most to you, because I think anything short of this is you being impatient, quite frankly. You need to ask yourself, do I feel like I have enough data science models and charts in front of me that leave me convicted on whether or not this cycle has ended and the market has topped? Now, again, I keep saying this and I have to get the video out there, but nothing I'm looking at is telling me that, right? So all that's going on right now is we're seeing a whole lot of sideways chop, consolidation, and volatility, okay? And this is the kind of shit that weeds people out. You get a lot of people who are impatient. They start inferring things from other people on Twitter or from their friends that are incorrect conclusions. They shouldn't be inferring what they're inferring. Or they're following hype artists who get them all hyped up that XRP is going to be at $30 next month and Bitcoin's going to be at $500,000. And when these things don't play out, and because, quite frankly, they're uneducated and they haven't done their own homework, they get weeded out, right? So before you put $1 into this market, it's really the onus. I always say this: the onus is on you. I mean, I'm just here to try to help you out to sort through things, and hopefully be another source of validation for your own train of thought. But literally, this is what I've been speaking to ever since I created this channel. What is playing out right now are the exact things that I've spoken to. Everything that's going on is designed to weed people out. Speaking of weeding people out, it's a great transition point. Let's get into some FUD articles, okay? Some more bullshit that weeds people out. My mom, as you know, based on a prior video out there on Twitter, if you take a look, and it was on a few of my YouTube intros, my mom and dad are in the market, right? I help them to get into the market. So my mom sometimes will come to me and she will ask me questions or express concern about what's going on. And I get it. I understand. I completely engross myself in this space. So she's part of the 99%. She'll go out there, she'll read an article, she'll express concern. Let me tell you what I'm speaking to here. My mother shared an article with me. Let me get the right article here. Let me whip out the old iPhone 8. For those of you who get a new iPhone every single year, I don't know how you spend the money on that. I still have an iPhone 8. My battery is crap, but I'm still procrastinating on getting that issue fixed. Whether it's a new battery or a new phone, who knows? Maybe I'll still have an iPhone by 2025. We'll see. I think I put a poll out there. I said, which will happen first? Will the CryptoBullGod get a new car, or will I still have an iPhone 8? Or will I get a new iPhone? I think the former. I think she'll have a new car before I get a new phone. So anyway, there was an article that my mom shared with me from December. I don't have the date in front of me now. I think it was December 3rd. This is on Forbes. Yeah, December 3rd. Okay. So on December 3rd, and we all know what was going on in December. Let me pull up a quick price chart. Let me pull up a daily here. December 3rd. Yeah. So what happened was crypto had made a temporary top. Bitcoin. Let's just speak about Bitcoin. Bitcoin made a temporary top in early November, just shy of 70,000. Okay. It was at 69,000. Okay. And December 3rd, we started correcting. And it looks like price opened around... Let me see here. I don't know. Let me just pick a round figure. I don't know. We opened around like 57,000. Okay. So actually we were a lot higher than I thought we were. Of course, then December 3rd is when we dropped. Okay. So December 3rd, we dropped and closed around, 53,000. Okay. So $53,000. All right. 53, 54. So this article gets published on Forbes. And apparently I have no clue who this is, but this is a famed investor, Louis Navalier, commented on Bitcoin because I'm sure he's real familiar with crypto and extremely knowledgeable of the market within cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. So he felt the need to comment here. So allow me to share with you on December 3rd what he said. And please allow room here to pause the video, get all the laughing out. And I know how ridiculous this sounds, but I'm going to read it to you. Navalier, and again, this is the process that weeds people out. Keep that in mind. Navalier warned that Bitcoin price could drop below $10,000 per Bitcoin. Okay? Now, when my mother shared this with me and she was texting me saying, what do you think's going on? People are saying that the price of Bitcoin could fall to this and blah, 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 blah. I have shared with my mother and I have shared with others plenty of times that articles that are printed like this do not have your best interest in mind, right? So this guy was quoted as saying that Bitcoin could drop below $10,000, okay, at a time when there was a lot of fear in the market. Keep that in mind. Let's go to JP Morgan. JP Morgan is always a fun one, okay? There was a title on CNBC back in January of 2021 when Bitcoin was making its second to last. Yes, I say second to last because it didn't make its last leg up. We're still waiting for that this year. When it made its leg up from the March 2020 crash of like, what did it fall to? 3,800? When it ran up from like 3,800 to... I don't know where it topped at that point. I think it was around 64,000. Well, anyway, when it was in the middle of that run, it was in the 30,000 range. Guess what JP Morgan said? JP Morgan, by the way, that, had come out in 2019, I believe, and said they would fire any employees who were known to be dealing in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Okay, so this company has come out publicly and said, of course, Jamie Dimon has come out and said some ridiculous things and how Bitcoin, he's gone back and forth on it. He's like a puppet. But he has said that in the past he would fire anyone working for the company that dealt in cryptocurrencies. So think about how ridiculous that sounds. Now everybody's trying to get in, of course. Do as they do, not as they say, as the expression goes, or however it goes, right? So, says one thing and does another. Now all these institutions are opening up trading platforms for crypto. But anyway, JP Morgan published an article on January 5th of last year, and it says Bitcoin could rise to 146,000 long-term as it competes with gold. Now, they did say in the article, the person who said this at JP Morgan did not say that it would go to 146,000 in 2021. It was more of a longer-term look. Didn't give a specific time frame. The point is, though, what I want you to get from this, okay, and remember the last article I shared with you. There was a lot of fear in December of last year, and what came out? Someone said, well, Bitcoin could go below $10,000, right? Now, when there's a lot of euphoria in the market, JP Morgan comes out and says Bitcoin could go to 146,000. Now, wait, hold on a second. This gets better. So now, okay, as Bitcoin has been correcting, there is an article that was published on Barron's here that says JP Morgan. This was published February 9th. Okay, so this was 8 days ago. JP Morgan sees Bitcoin at $38,000. Okay, and that's the crypto bull goddess in the background saying she wouldn't make any noises. All right, so JP Morgan says that they could see Bitcoin at $38,000. Now, this is happening at a time of mass fear. Are you seeing any sort of correlation here? Do you think these news articles, mass publications from these financial institutions, based on the huge headlines they put out there to grab your attention, do you think they have your best interest in mind? What would be interesting, and I've seen some people put this together, is you can actually plot a point. You can plot a chart with the news articles that come out, and when there's mass euphoria in the articles that come out, the headlines. When there's mass fear in the headlines that are put out from these institutions to invoke fear, to invoke euphoria. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but do you think it's possible that some of these institutions could be playing these moves counterintuitive, or not counterintuitive, but counter to what they're publishing? So if they're saying basically you should go long on something, they're shorting it. If they're saying you should short it, they're going long on it. Again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but these articles, if you go back through time, the same thing keeps playing out over and over and over again. And to that point, the next thing I kind of wanted to hit on here is Peter Schiff. Now, I have spoken to the fact that Peter Schiff is somebody whose views I very much respect. Very, very, very much respect. Peter Schiff, for those who are not familiar, I do follow him, by the way. He is a libertarian. I am not a political person. I do not categorize myself as Republican. I do not categorize myself as Democrat. Although when I've heard certain political views and certain stances on something, I will say that if I had to characterize myself as anything, it does seem based on certain viewpoints, I do tend to side with libertarian views, for sure. And so that's probably why I respect his viewpoints on a lot of things. But one thing that he always comments on, and it's quite obvious why, because he is neck deep in gold, okay? And Bitcoin is being touted as digital gold, okay? He has nothing but negative things to say about Bitcoin and all of crypto, okay? And again, he tweeted something today, and it's just the same old. And I responded back, and I highly doubt at any point in my lifetime I'll ever get a reply. But let me read you the tweet. The price of gold just rose above $1,900 for the first time in 8 months. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is back below 42,000. What was promoted as digital gold has become the anti-gold. A bet on Bitcoin is a bet against gold. It's like being short gold, but with a maximum loss of Jesus, how ridiculous is this? It's like being short gold, but with a maximum loss of 100%. Now, interestingly enough, I did comment. Follow me on Twitter. Look at my reply. I included a tweet on there, CryptoBullGod. If you actually go to a chart out there that Willy Woo has out there on the Wooble site, Wooble Charts, you'll see Bitcoin's historical performance versus gold. And if you look at the annual return, see what Peter Schiff likes to do is he likes to cherry pick short periods of time where gold will outperform Bitcoin. Okay, he'll pick very short periods of time and then he'll call for the death of Bitcoin. Okay, when Bitcoin was correcting last summer around that 30,000 range, he was calling for head and shoulder movements that would have taken it well below 10,000. Okay, this is what he does. And what you'll see, again, and people have plotted this on a chart, is you always want to take the contrarian view to Peter Schiff when he's calling for Bitcoin's demise. It's just proven out time and time again in the past decade, okay? I don't know if it's been has it been a decade? I think since around 2012 or 13. So, yeah, about around a decade. But if you go to the chart that I tweeted out, you'll see Bitcoin versus gold's performance over 12.4 years. And if you look at the average annual returns in the past year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, Bitcoin has outperformed gold over every single time frame that I just referred to. So it's just anyone with any sort of sense of what's going on and kind of seeing his tweets and a good understanding of gold and Bitcoin and Peter Schiff's historical tweets on the matter, you just roll your eyes at this sort of thing. I would say I used to reply to his tweets more, but when he refers to Bitcoin, I don't. I tend to more so engage him when it's non-Bitcoin related things because I just roll my eyes. But this is a sort of bullshit that if you actually buy into and take for face value at what he's saying, you're really missing out on what has been and what is going to continue to be this generational wealth transfer opportunity I talk about. There is no market out there that is more disruptive, more volatile, but has more opportunity than this market. There is no market than crypto right now. I mean, it's just a fact. You can look at the historical performance of crypto since inception and see that. And if you're actually paying attention to the fundamental perspective of this and the projects that really are being adopted and are getting that surge within the marketplace, you'll see that we are so early at the adoption curve, and getting in now and knowing what you're doing is going to pay handsomely in years, 5 years, 10 years out to come. I've said this a few times, but I love recording these podcasts and especially the fact that it's all audio and it's not video, because literally just pause this for about 5 minutes and you never would have realized. So anyway, that's a perfect transition, right? Perfect transition to talk about Canada real quick. So there are a lot of crazy things going on in Canada. I tried to play catch up the past few days to see specifically what was going on. And I don't want to come from this from a political side. We're not going to get into specific things surrounding the protests or politics. What I wanted to do is I wanted to relate what was going on there to crypto. And let's just talk about Bitcoin because, despite what your views are on things, look, the fact is Bitcoin, whether for whatever reason you don't like it or like it, it is the mothership of crypto. And we all have to be thankful that this technology came about because it spurred other technologies, other blockchain technologies and hashgraph technology as well. But, and actually hashgraph technology came about without Bitcoin's existence, separate aside from that. That's another story. But anyway, the point is, I'm going to digress here. The point is that I just want to relate this to Bitcoin for a moment. So one of the crazy things that's going on in Canada, is that due to, and I would encourage you to do your own research on what's going on here, because I'm not going to explain everything. So if some of this doesn't make sense, you're going to have to kind of follow up on your own. But basically, there's protests going on, and these protests have resulted in the government putting through some sort of emergency order that they have either never had to do or haven't had to do in a very long time. And the emergency order, now I really want you to listen to this for a second, and let me explain to you why this is concerning. One part of the emergency order has enabled the government to contact financial institutions and any person who is tied to funding, apparently there's GoFundMe pages, to funding or providing any form of financial aid through a bank account or, yes, a crypto wallet to these protesters. The government is contacting the financial institutions and shutting off all funds. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. What that means is, if I'm tied to someone, let's say that I donated money to someone who's associated with the protesting that's going on where it's going on in Canada, the government can contact my bank and shut off access to my funds. Really think about that for a second. So money that is mine, that is parked in a bank, my capital that I've worked my ass off for the past how many years, in my case, to be an actuary, doing the profession I do, I've spent all these years, it's putting bread on the table. The government can come in, cut it off. Why do you think one of the major premises behind Bitcoin was that it came about? It's to remove central authority. If you read the white paper, the thing that sticks out to me is it was designed to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Let's remove the government. Let's remove the banks. It's your value. It's your currency. It's your money. Okay? And all you need are people. We don't need to trust other entities to be an intermediary. We can allow computer code, analytics, and all the technology behind blockchain to validate the transactions to allow a peer-to-peer system to work. This is a huge fear that shouldn't just be current for residents within Canada, but don't think for 1 second that the United States government, there aren't people in the United States government looking at what's going on in Canada and viewing them as guinea pigs, such that they couldn't do something to see how kind of things play out, that the U.S. government couldn't do something similar. That if there are protests, just as an example, there aren't protests going on in the United States and the government decided to shut off banks for people that they couldn't access their funds, or maybe there's some sort of deep financial crisis, okay? And I've spoken to this in the past, but there's a run on the banks, right? Kind of spoken to this before. If you're not familiar, here's another learning opportunity for you. When you look at your bank account and you see, let's say your bank account balance is $500, okay? Your checking account balance is $500. Those are digits on a screen, but it doesn't mean that the bank is actually holding $500. There's a reserving methodology that banks are, and during the financial crisis, I believe it was set to 0 actually. So banks are only required to hold a certain percentage of what you deposit. And this allows lending and overlending the more you study. But typically at most financial institutions prior to COVID, I believe it was between 1% to 5%. And think about that for a second. So every $100 you deposit in the bank is only required to hold $1 to $5. Okay, that limit of 1% to 5% or whatever the requirement was at certain financial institutions, it was set to 0 because of the hard times during COVID. I don't know if that ever was lifted. The point is if there was ever a run on the banks, and everyone tried to get their money out of the banks, what you would find is the bank doesn't have your money. You wouldn't be able to get your money out. So these are the challenges, and not just challenges, but scary things associated with trusting government and financial entities to safeguard your assets. And this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, positive things or strengths of cryptocurrency is it takes all of that out of the picture. It's literally peer-to-peer. You remove that intermediary. So it is very scary what's going on in Canada. The only other thing I wanted to hit on with that is I want you to think about for a second that the other thing that the Canadian government did, okay, it's amazing. I feel like the governments at different times can come up with, you think you're protected by certain laws, but then you quickly realize that the governments can come up with modifying laws and working away laws and taking away your individual freedoms in many cases. I mean, we've experienced that the past couple of years, questionably and unarguably throughout the country. But anyway, said I wouldn't go on a tangent. So one of the interesting things that I think it was the Prime Minister said in Canada, she said that if the government suspected anyone, listen to that, suspected anyone of funding anyone within any of the protesters, they could shut off funds without going to court. So now we're removing the judicial system. The government is literally taking control of the situation without the courts and saying, we suspect you of something. We're cutting off access to your checking account. I don't know how you're going to pay bills. I don't know how you're going to pay your mortgage. I don't know how you're going to put dinner in front of your kids tonight, but we're cutting off your funds. So think about a hypothetical example where I don't know, maybe every month. Here's a great example. Maybe every month I make donations to an organization, and that organization is found to be funding the protesters. Well, hypothetically, what they could do is they could tie the money back to the organization I donate to, and then tie that money back to me being a donator, okay, to that organization. They could shut off funds to the donation organization as well as myself. Think about how fucked up that is. So this is the stuff going on in Canada that is very, very scary. Very much sounds like a dictatorship. Very much sounds like a dictatorship. Very scary stuff. Just stuff that you want to pay attention to and realize that, as we're getting caught up, I'm not getting caught up, as hopefully you're not getting caught up either as a listener to this podcast in general. But as some people are getting caught up in the day-to-day volatility of what's going on, don't lose perspective on the long-term narrative of why this technology and space is so critically important for the future. And getting in now, it's the best way I can put it. You're getting in at a very early adoption, at the very early point of the adoption curve. Very early part of the adoption curve. Crypto is only a sub $2 trillion market cap, which is so tiny relative to other markets, which I've spoken to in the past. So, with that being said, let's get into the chart of the week. And the chart of the week is the one that I've spoke ad nauseum to, which is the Bitcoin 12-hour chart. I don't think I really need to say anything more about the Bitcoin 12-hour chart, but this really is the chart of the week. It's the Bitcoin chart I'm paying most attention to. Right now, as I'm recording this, Bitcoin has wicked on a 12-hour candlestick. It has wicked slightly below the 50 simple moving average, but it's now closing around 40,800, so we're remaining above it. Again, that's not concerning to me. We can wick below it all we want. I just don't want to see a bunch of candle body closes below it. So just keep an eye on that 12-hour chart. I'm going to, that really is going to be my bread and butter to update people on. There's a lot of people, again, speaking to weekly views, 3-day views, 2-week views, monthly views. But again, if you really value having an insight at the earliest point possible on when things are most likely to begin to really turn around, make sure to follow my content very closely, because this 12-hour chart has more significant historical significance than any other time frame chart, just because there's more data points and price events that I've spoken to relative to any other time frame. And I'm just surprised it's not getting more attention and not more people have looked at this. So anyway, with that being said, this is one of my favorite parts of the podcast. I should say it's my favorite part of the podcast, actually, because I get to interact with everybody. Let's get into the Twitter questions. And I actually have to find the Twitter questions. All right. So once again, thank you for everybody who engaged with me on the questions for this week. This is in no particular order. Actually, it looks like I am going in order. So this is in chronological order. All right. So first question comes in from Steve. Thank you for your question, Steve. You do engage quite frequently. Steve asks what my current thoughts on the market are. There's a lot of confusing stuff going on. Well, I feel like if I express my current thoughts on the market, that's pretty much what I have been expressing. So, Steve, if you've been a long-time subscriber to the channel, so you should know this. I remove all the noise. And while I've spoken to the past that there's always black swan events, there's always events that can swoop in like an SEC case on a certain crypto project where the chart takes a mega shit on us. Yes, those black swan events do exist. But outside the context of any black swan events, which no one can plan for, I just allow charts to do the talking for me. I allow them to paint a picture. And then as emerging price data develops within those charts, it helps to formulate more solidly what my view of things are. And that's all I use. So the other stuff going on is what I would call fluff. All this Russia crap is fluff. The Canada stuff, while it's interesting and people should pay attention to it, because certainly seems like there's a little bit of dictatorship going on over there, in my opinion. Very concerning things. It's all fluff relative to the market. Everything that's going to play out, in my opinion, in my educated opinion of doing this for a little while now, it's all in the charts. Okay? And everybody, people's whose opinions, whether I agree or disagree at different points, have agreed or disagreed during different points of the cycle or will continue to, there's still viewpoints I very much respect, and their viewpoints are similar to mine too. All the views in the charts you look at. So that's my answer. Don't know how to pronounce this. Mock J. What do you suggest to improve in trading, and how did you get into trading? So I've spoken to this to the past, but it's a very good question. Thank you for asking this one. So first off, let me answer your questions backwards. So I got into trading in 2000, I believe, in 16. It was a little, so what happened for me was, I studied for a very, 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 very long time, pretty much all of my 20s and then into my early 30s, very early 30s, for those actuarial exams to be an FSA. And then I was so used to studying, after work and before work, it's like all I did outside of working out, that I needed to occupy myself with something else to learn. I just love learning. So I got into trading at that point. I took professional trading classes. Shout out to Clay Trader University. That's who I took, Clay Trader. I think he does an excellent job, or he did an excellent job back then. That's how I got into it. And I did a little paper trading. Then I got into actual trading. I did a little bit of day trading. Found out you can get your ass handed to you in day trading. It's not easy. And then decided that the best strategy for myself was to do longer term swing plays like I'm doing now, which have worked out very handsomely. So that's how I got into it. And then how do you improve in trading? You just got to put in the work. You got to diligently chart things, and you have to be humble. You have to be humble and recognize where you've made mistakes and be willing to learn from that. And also have some good traders. I wouldn't say traders because I hate using the word trader, honestly, because I'm not a day trader, so I don't like using that. So I'm a technical analyst. I like reading charts. So as a technical analyst, what I also like to do is I like to validate and validate my train of thought from other TA people who I respect. So it's like anything else in life. You just have to stay humble because you don't know everything, right? So just continue to wanting to learn and practice your trade. You had another question here. Do you think coins like Dotlink, Near, Didex will recover and get back to the highs from November, December last year? Short answer is yes. Longer answer is when the market picks back up and Bitcoin begins to turn around and drive the rest of the market performance. You would be hard pressed, in my opinion, educated opinion, looking back on things and knowing what's coming, or feeling convicted of what's coming. I shouldn't say I know. No one knows with 100% certainty. But you would be very hard pressed, in my opinion, to find any project that won't exceed its prior all-time high. I think most projects will shoot well past their prior all-time high. Phantom 5 with about 10,000 questions. No, I appreciate the engagement in all seriousness. Phantom 5, me again. Are you familiar with bot trading? I'm not super familiar with it. No, I just know of it. And would you recommend it? No, I just know of it, but I don't recommend anything or super familiar. Finally, any thoughts on Tornado? I think you meant to say on Tornado Cash as privacy coin. No. The only real privacy coins that I'm really more familiar with are older project privacy coins like Monero, Dash, Zcash. Those are really the only privacy coins that I'm super familiar with, or I wouldn't say super familiar, but familiar enough with. I don't know Tornado Cash, so sorry. Another question. Yep, I don't have a crystal ball. You are correct. So this is saying. So this is from Phantom 5. So with all the various, why are you asking me this question? I already know what you're going to ask me. You should know the answer. So with all the various political scenarios, where do you see crypto markets towards month end as well? Come on. You're asking me too specific of a question or questions here. You're asking me where I see things at month end as well as end of March. And when considering the dollar volatility, come on, you should know better. You engage with me very regularly. You should know not to ask this question, because what you're doing is you're pigeonholing yourself and myself into something that's too finite a time period. I mean, you should know this. My opinion is that you should focus on the bigger picture rather than focusing on where we're going to see ourselves at the end of this month. I don't know where we're going to see ourselves at the end of this month. I don't know where we're going to see ourselves at the end of March. Educated guesses by the end of March will be at or above or entertaining levels on the 12-hour chart above the 200 SMA, and we'll begin to start to gradually recover in price and begin our momentum upwards. That's my best educated guess, but I don't know that for certainty. I think the more important thing, just my opinion, I don't know what your end game is here and how you're invested, but I think what you should focus on is the bigger picture and not give two shits about where we'll be at the end of the month or March, right? And focus on the things I've said earlier, if we've topped or not. Whether we start an ultimate recovery this month or April, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And as far as the political scenarios are concerned, I already spoke about that. It's all fluff to me. It's just all noise. I don't pay any attention to it. Other than interesting things like in Canada, that are just more philosophically important to ask ourselves in terms of anything that's concerning going on in neighboring countries around us as well as our own. Randy, I always like hearing from you. You're saying there's not too much you haven't addressed, may have mentioned in the past. I'm curious to the obsession with inverting charts. I see it more and more. Okay, this is a really good question. I'm glad you asked this, actually. I like this. Okay, so very, very good question. So inverting charts is a really interesting thing that I only learned to do a couple years ago. And I wouldn't call it an obsession, but I don't know, it's actually hard for me in this specific moment. I'll have to think about perhaps in the future how I can reword this. But for me, being analytically minded, it makes a lot of sense, but I'm finding it difficult in this moment to find the words to best explain it. But when I'm looking at a chart, it's creating a picture for me. And all we're doing by inverting it is we're sort of recreating the image in a different view. Does that make sense? So it's still valid. All we're doing is literally inverting the y-axis, which is the price point plot. Okay, so we're taking the same picture we're looking at on a normal chart, and we're simply flipping it upside down to give us a different perspective on the same thing. That's all we're doing. And the view that we look at on that chart, I'll give you an example, because I can think of this off the top of my head. If we're looking on a normal chart and an ascending triangle, okay, which is a bullish formation within a regular chart, we can actually, if we're having problems discerning, maybe we just have a problem discerning what an ascending triangle is, well, we can invert it. And if we invert it, we actually see a descending triangle, because if you take that same triangle and invert it, it turns from an ascending triangle into a descending triangle. And maybe we're much better at making sense of what a descending triangle is. Well, how the price plays out is the same thing. A descending triangle is bearish, but on an inverted chart, since the price, action would move down, it's actually moving up. So it's literally just taking our view and creating an alternative but valid view of the price action going on. That's all. I mean, it's really interesting. I've only learned about it a couple of years ago that we could actually do that, but just something that's interesting from a TA perspective. And I think that's it. This was more of a comment more than anything. I'll like it, but not sure what that meant. But anyway, I wanted to thank everybody for the Twitter comments. Hopefully you found all of the material very, very engaging, and you chose to subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't already, drop a like, leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm, like I always say, so I can continue to churn out content. So in closing, please join me in a moment of silence as I prepare to grill up some swordfish. Looking forward to that. For all those I attempted on multiple occasions to get into crypto and have remained ignorant. What's ignorant in Spanish? And have remained ignorante. Gracias.